Hello, my name is Delia Grace. I'm an epidemiologist and I work at the International Livestock Research Institute in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm here to tell you about an e-book which has just been released about food safety in developing countries. This book synthesizes recent information about food safety. So why should we care about food safety in developing countries? The first thing is that we realize now how huge a health problem this is. Before, we never had good estimates on the actual health burden of foodborne disease. But last year, with the publication of the World Health Organization Global Assessment of Foodborne Disease, we now have the first assessment. This shows that foodborne disease has a burden equivalent to that of the big three diseases: malaria, HIV/AIDS, and tuberculosis. Foodborne disease in developing countries kills more than 400,000 people every year and causes 600 million or more illnesses. This large health burden also means that foodborne disease entails a lot of economic costs. Costs for the poor people who become ill as a result of eating food, who have to get transport to hospital, who have to pay out of pocket for antibiotics and other treatments, but also costs for the overstretched health services who have to provide health services for these 600 million infections occurring every year. But food safety isn't just a question of health and disease. Foodborne disease also imposes costs on the agricultural sector, on the ability of countries to export their foods, and on the livelihoods of people working in the food and agriculture industry. There are also important interactions between food safety and nutrition. It's clear that diarrhea contributes to malnutrition and that malnutrition contributes to diarrhea in a negative cycle. As well as this, there are some more unsure areas. There are some areas where there are more uncertainties but possibly great impacts. For example, aflatoxins, a fungal toxin which contaminates much maize, groundnuts and milk in developing countries, has been strongly associated with stunting in children. Secondly, not only is food safety an enormous problem, it's a problem that is not going away. In fact, as food systems change, as they start to become more complicated, as agriculture intensifies, as these food value chains lengthen and become more complex, food safety seems to be getting worse. And this is not surprising. When food is grown or prepared very close at hand to where it's finally consumed, there is little chance for things to go wrong. But when food starts to be transported over huge distances, through many hands, far away from the farms where it is produced, there's much more opportunity for contamination to occur and to worsen. So what have we learned about foodborne diseases in recent years? Firstly, it's clear that the great majority of the burden, 97%, is due to microbial hazards and parasites. That is, it is biological living organisms which are poisoning people, killing them and making them sick, rather than the chemicals, which is what people often fear. In fact, there's a saying in the food safety world: what you worry about and what makes you sick and kill you is rarely the same thing. While just around 3% of the overall burden is caused by chemicals, there are also a lot of unknowns about chemicals. Because it's more difficult to measure the burden of foodborne disease, it's possible that chemicals are in fact having more serious impacts on health than is yet known. Therefore, an area of a research priority is finding out the true burden of chemicals so that the investments in managing this problem can be proportioned to its contribution to the health burden. The good news, however, is that food safety is potentially a soluble problem. Already developed countries have made great progress in controlling foodborne disease. Sometimes it doesn't seem like this when we read the papers and hear about the latest scare, whether it's the listeria, hysteria, or the E. coli in sprouts. But in actual fact, the food we eat in rich countries and high-income countries is pretty safe. On the other hand, as we said, most of the food consumed in developing countries is not safe. Rich countries have managed to improve the safety of their food by a number of steps, but many of them take place on the farm and along the supply chain before the food ever reaches consumers' houses. Some of these agriculture-driven solutions to food safety are very applicable to developing countries, but as yet have not been widely used. The other key area for improving food safety is working with the agents, the market actors, who are key to moving the food from the farms where it is produced to the places where food is retailed and sold to consumers. And these market agents in developing countries are nearly all in the informal sector. Around, depending on the country and the context, around 80 to 90% of these market agents are informal. In the past, there was little investment in this area, and many people believed that it would just disappear and that modern food systems would take over, and this was not something which they had to worry about. As we study the informal sector more, we realise that not only does it deliver the great majority of the risky foods, that is the animal source foods and the fresh vegetables, but it's also going to be an important supply system for decades to come. Fortunately, there is some encouraging early results suggesting that by working with the informal sector rather than trying to get rid of it, we can actually not only improve the safety of food that is sold, but also make it more accessible and improve the livelihoods of these hundreds of millions of people involved in agricultural supply chains. You can access the ebook on the Evidence on Demand website. Thank you.